The AP poll is out. Tennessee is number 9. So we'll go ahead and make that the poll question while I run things down. Tennessee just drops 2 spots from the last poll. And I will give the AP voters credit. I thought Tennessee would be 12 or 13 because of the way they lost, but I think they weighed it correctly, especially now that Ohio State has won a national championship. And yes, they thumped the Vols, but that was at home, and they proved to be the best team in the nation. So set up the question. Tennessee at number 9, too high, too low, just right. Number 1 is, of course, Ohio State. Number 2 is Notre Dame. I think kudos to that. I didn't know where Notre Dame, or would they fall a couple points or 3 or 4 because they lost by double digits. I probably would have put them behind Oregon, to be real frank with you. But Oregon is number 3. Texas is number 4. Penn State number 5. Georgia at 6. Arizona State is number 7. Boise State number 8. Tennessee at number 9. Indiana at number 10. Other SEC schools, Ole Miss is 11, and then Alabama is 17, South Carolina 19, Missouri 22, and unless I miss one, that's all your SEC teams. So let's do the porridge game. Too hot, too cold, just right. Brought to you by City Heat and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
Insanely too low. Flat out insanely too low.
Okay.
Because of the 2 teams ahead of them. This is what upsets me about the AP poll. They lazily voted based on how far you win in the college football playoff and didn't factor anything else in. Let's think about this, Dave. Why are Boise State and Arizona State ahead of Tennessee?
Well, I guess that's hard to say. Again, I think Tennessee was on that primetime game, and I don't care what anybody says. The AP voters don't watch every game. There are a lot of guys that, they've covered football for 30 years. Are they really watching every single game? But the Tennessee game was on prime time. So I don't think that helped.
It doesn't.
I think everybody saw the beginning of that game and made their assumptions about Tennessee and Georgia Tennessee and Ohio State before halftime.
Okay, but here's what upsets me about it. Tennessee was ahead of Boise State and Arizona State in the AP poll before the playoffs started. All 3 teams lost their first playoff game. Tennessee to the national champion. But you move Boise State and Arizona State ahead of Tennessee. Why? Because technically, Boise State and Arizona State were higher seeded teams in the college football playoff because of the stupid conference title seeding automatic bid thing. So technically, they went to the second round. Here's what AP voters just did. Boise State and Arizona State were in the second round, and Tennessee only made it to the first round, so therefore Boise State and Arizona State got to finish ahead of Tennessee, even though they all lost their first playoff game. And it was a stupid auto bid. This is why, and I got to be honest with you guys, this is why the voting and the polls and the AP voters have lost their power on college football.
Totally, completely. As of last night, everything changed.
They have been lazy voters for 45 to 50 years. When the college football playoff started, Dave, they didn't need it. If you think about this, they didn't need a 13-team committee. They could have just done the AP poll voters and said, let's do that. They didn't want to because they know how stupid and lazy and how much politicking the AP poll voters do. It's an embarrassment to the sport now. And I don't just mean AP voters. I mean, in general, media voters have totally destroyed their credibility in a sport, by the way. For those who don't know, and I bring up this history, go back and read about the history of Grantland Rice. National guy, really his writing, his incredible writing helped propel college football to what it is. The media had pull over college football like any other sport. But then I was at SEC Media Days 2 years ago, Dave, and 3 people voted for Vanderbilt to win the SEC. That was just, maybe I'm crazy, but you should take your votes very seriously when you're in this. And
I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I think I go so far as to say I've said this before, there are 2 fan bases, or I'm sorry, 2 media contingents that will wear their school colors that they cover 2 games. And it's Kentucky. There's only 3 or 4 of them last I was there, but Kentucky basketball and Alabama football. I really believe that you should go up and you should pat them on the shoulder and say, Hello, Larry. I think it's time you leave the press area.
I agree. I totally agree.
I accidentally, I mean, this means something when you're in the locker room. I accidentally wore Mississippi State colors. Somebody else packed my clothes, and Tennessee hammered Mississippi State. And you remember Steve Caldwell?
Yeah.
Yeah, defensive ends coach. He goes, "What the hell are you wearing?"
That's like, really funny.
I was like, Steve, I didn't pack my clothes. I'm sorry. I'm a child.
When I was at the Beacon, Dave, funny enough, you're going to laugh at this. I covered, I believe it was the Tennessee-Arkansas game in 2007, where Arkansas was at Tennessee. Tennessee shut down Darren McFadden and Felix Jones in one of the best prepared games John Chavis ever had. But there was late in the game, I forget his name.
Didn't work so well the next year, but anyway.
Yeah, that's true. But there was a guy working at the Beacon with me, and he had a buddy he went to high school with who was playing on Tennessee, who was kind of a walk-on, but got on the field late and made a nice play. And I mean, he just did this, like kind of pumped his fist to see his friend do well. There were two people that kind of went over and talked to him. I remember how big Neyland Stadium was in Tennessee. Was like, you don't cheer, you don't let it be known that you're rooting for anybody.
Oh no. I'll give you two worse ones. So when I was with WTK, I didn't know this, but I one time cheered and I realized that nobody else did, so I knew to stop myself. And then there was an auxiliary press area for the 1997 SEC championship game that I might have taken up a lady to there with a credential, and we cheered. And we were told by the SEC, no, that is not acceptable. And I think I've told this story before. When I walked out of Peyton Manning's last game, the Orange Bowl, I took off my orange and I said, I can't do my job unless I'm objective. And I think it's proven out that I was right. I mean, does it help our show and everything for Tennessee to win? Certainly. But if I get on here every day and I'm a Tennessee homer, or they're media that are negative on the other side, if it hurts my feelings that Tennessee lost, it's going to affect my reporting. If I want Tennessee to win, it's going to affect my reporting. So you can't do that. Sorry to get off on a tangent.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But this is the point. This is the lazy. So two things that have cost AP their power and the media their power. Homerism, actually three. Homerism. How about just bias in general? Bias in general and laziness. This vote to put Tennessee at 9 is laziness, because you are just putting Arizona State and Boise State ahead of Tennessee because they just went further in the college football playoff. By the way, there's an argument that even Penn State shouldn't be ahead of Tennessee. I get why you did it. They made it to the Final Four. But even then, like Dave, Penn State's ranked ahead of Georgia only because Penn State advanced to the semifinals and Georgia got out in the quarterfinals. But does anybody really believe that Penn State's better than Georgia?
Okay, I want to dig into that. So how would you rank them? Because the stair-step system, as I call it, is the dumbest way in the world. But on the flip side of that, you have more of a track record in the regular season than you do the playoffs. So you do have to take that into account. How would we rank the AP as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's #1 overall Ford dealer?
Hey Ted, it's time to save some cash to our New Year's Dash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Okay, I'll go ahead and give you my top 5, and then I'll give you where Tennessee should be ranked. Let's update the poll question. People agree with me. Tennessee finishing #9 in the AP poll is too high, 8%, too low, 23%, and 69% say that porridge is just right. Matt,
when did I become the Tennessee homer? It feels like being the same. They were way. No, I'm saying they're too low.
No, okay. Oh, Mike says Hooker doesn't think he's a Tennessee homer. Okay, well.
No, I'm saying like I'm
talking the message board. There are a lot of people that have hired me, Mike, that would disagree with you. Mark says AP lost. Okay, when they voted. Okay, I want to get to this point. Matt said at this point, I don't even know. Well, here's what I would have at the top 5. I think Mike is a Georgia fan, so maybe this will redeem me a bit. I think #9 is just fine. I think that that's about where they should be when I look at it. If they were 7, it wouldn't make a big difference to me. It was somewhat important. I believe that Tennessee had a top 10 finish. I thought they might slip into 12. So I think at the end of the day, goal accomplished. And I'm fine with that. And I'm happy if I'm Josh Heupel. Now, you may think they should be a little higher, but I think we're kind of splitting hairs. As long as you're in the top 10, you get to sit down in front of a kid in recruiting and say you're in the top 10. So here's how my top 5 would look: Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia. Then I get a little Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, and then I'm going to go Texas, Notre Dame. I would drop Notre Dame. I wouldn't lock them in to number 2 just because they made the national championship game.
All right, here's mine. Ohio State. I'm not locking Notre Dame in at number 2 because they made the title game. I just did a rant on why you shouldn't do it based on titles. But they did beat Georgia to get to the title game.
Okay.
That's enough for me. So
But
Ohio State.
Okay, but are we weighing quarterback issues, injuries, that sort of thing?
Well, Georgia beat Texas with Gunnar Stockton, and that's the problem. So it's like, with that in mind, and Notre Dame kind of manhandled Georgia in that game. They didn't just beat them. They kind of manhandled them. So, I mean, again, people, look, these are not power rankings. You agree with me on that, right?
Yes, go ahead.
Because they're not power rankings, I got to put Notre Dame ahead of Georgia just by sheer value of beating them. So I'm going to go Ohio State, but I think I'm with you. I'm going to put Oregon second. I'll go Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, Georgia, Texas. And then 6 to me is Penn State. 7 is Tennessee. 8 is Arizona State. 9 is Boise State. And by the way, Indiana should not be number 10. I'm sorry. Ole Miss should be number 10. They should be ahead of Indiana and SMU. There, sue me. I don't care that they didn't make the playoff.
You remember me saying that if Indiana made the playoff, that we were going to just shut the whole thing down?
Yep, I do.
Okay, we're not doing that. Sorry, I didn't think they'd make the playoff. I thought they'd eventually fall apart. Well, this leads me to this question. Let's take a look at another ranking. Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay. This ranking is this. I used to think it was more important than the AP ranking. Now I'm not so sure. Let's look at the composite rankings for the 2025 recruiting class. Texas, number 1. Georgia, number 2. Ohio State, number 3. Alabama, number 4. Oregon, number 5. Auburn, 6. Texas A&M, 7. LSU, 8. Michigan, 9. Florida, 10. Tennessee, 11. Notre Dame, 12. Now, my question is not whether or not you agree with those rankings. That would require a ton of study. But my question is this even nearly as important as it was before NIL came along? In other words, do you just have to do like Tennessee, which I would have said would be treading water 10 years ago, because Tennessee only won when they were finishing in the top 3 under Philip Fulmer at a high level. So to me, this is fine. It's not treading water anymore. This is just being where you need to be, and then decide if you need to go out and supplement your roster with transfers or just cement your roster with paying current players more. So, Caleb, how important is recruiting rankings anymore? Because the SEC still looks like the dominant school.
It does. You know who's the bigger winner when you look at these recruiting rankings? You know who's the biggest winner of this top 10? Ready?
Yeah, tell me.
Auburn. Auburn's number 6 in the 2025 recruiting rankings. But Dave, they're number 4 in the 2025 transfer portal rankings. So the combination is the most important. Now, LSU's number 1 in transfer portal rankings and number 8 in recruiting. But I think I still value high school recruiting a little bit more than transfer portal recruiting when I think of your long-term success. But
not a little bit more. I mean, maybe a lot more. I mean, I don't think you can. I used to say I didn't think you could win a national championship if you were 10 or lower consistently in recruiting rankings. I will, and I've covered recruiting for 25 years, so I think I know what I'm talking about. Now I'm more along the lines of as long as you're in the top 15 and you make some savvy moves in the portal or NIL and keeping people, I don't think you've got a problem. I think you're good to go.
I agree.